Business news from the Capital Region. This is Washington Business Report with ABC7 national correspondent Rebecca Cooper.
Welcome to this week's Fresh Look at Business and Finance here in the Washington region. Coming up, our one-on-one interview, the challenges a successful family business faces when it goes public. We sit down with the head of Walker & Dunlop. In our small business spotlight, a local company named one of the best places to work 4 years running. The founder lets us in on the secrets of how he plans to offer benefits that keep employees loyal while at the same time turning a healthy profit. And in the roundtable today, a focus on transportation. It's a top issue for business leaders. We'll get the latest on big projects many in the region have been waiting for. But first, this week we go one-on-one with a Washingtonian who was born into a successful family but wanted to earn his own stripes rather than enter the family business. Willy Walker grew up in D.C. but took his Harvard MBA to South America, where he managed a startup airline in Argentina and then Teletech, where he rose through the ranks to president of its European and Latin American divisions. But starting a family brought him back to Washington. Walker says it was a surprise even to him that he is back in the family business, one that he has since grown to a public company that is now the 10th largest commercial real estate lender in the country. But it's that surprise where our conversation began when I sat down with him in his Bethesda office.
I never thought I'd be where I am today, ever. It was never really an aspiration of mine to work in the family company. And I think my father did a great job. He went directly from the University of Virginia to working for his dad. It was really only a confluence of a number of different events that happened in 2003 that brought me back to the company. I had a very broad experience before coming back here, and it also run companies that were much, much bigger than Walker & Dunlop was. What that enabled for us to do when I arrived was for my father to have great confidence that I knew what I was doing. So unlike many generational shifts of power in companies where somebody will have to come in and, if you will, prove that they know how to do what they're doing, and many times that's a very, very long period of time. And I have many stories from friends of mine in Washington who have family companies that sort of never quite get past to the next generation until the patriarch is literally taken out of the office in a box. It's, you know, my father was fantastic. The day I arrived at this company, he gave me his office and he moved to a much smaller office. Potentially, I mean, quite honestly, probably had too much confidence in me right out of the bag than was probably warranted at the time. But he had seen me run other companies and watch what I'd done in my professional career outside of Walker & Dunlop and outside of Washington. And so he had the, you know, he had the unique ability there to understand what I could do. But I can guarantee you the people sitting around this conference room the day I showed up here and he said he's now running the show were not nearly as convinced.
And you've proved them wrong, but how did you overcome that stigma that anyone has walking in as the boss's kid? Did you feel it? And if you did, what did you do to overcome it?
You clearly feel it. There's no doubt. I remember distinctly going to a convention my first year here at Walker & Dunlop and having somebody say, oh, you work at Walker & Dunlop, the only reason you're there is because your dad's president of the company. And
ouch.
Basically, yeah, you get that stuff. But first of all, nothing, you know, beats hard work and success, to be perfectly honest with you. And the real trick is to get the benefits of being a publicly traded company, but not losing what makes this company unique and makes it feel like a family company.
So how do you do that?
Oh, a lot of work, a lot of travel. Every employee at Walker & Dunlop gets a birthday card from me with a personal note. Talking to people, making sure that there's constant communication, that nobody ever finds something out from an external source before they find it out internally. And just really, you know, the culture here is hugely important.
Your mother, Diana Walker, I've known, the great Time magazine photographer, White House photographer, taken many iconic images, including she took that iconic Hillary Clinton wearing the shades, reading her iPhone that became ubiquitous. So what did you learn from Mom?
Yeah, my mom has had a huge influence on me. Growing up and having a mother who was a serious professional in the sense of the demands on her from both a time and physical wear and tear. I think one of the things that many people think about is photography. Okay, show up, put the camera on a tripod and off you go. And covering the White House is it's full contact. It's a full contact sport.
So what causes you stress? Do you ever feel like surrounded by all the success, being considered someone who has achieved already great success? What causes you stress, and do you ever think, you know what, maybe just some quiet island somewhere?
I think it's a little too early to be thinking about the quiet island. I would say that being a public company is, I just call it a grind. I don't think that before we became a public company, I thought there's really no difference between being a private company CEO and a public company CEO. I was totally wrong. I mean, totally wrong. When you're a private company, you set the timetable. You can have a bad year and you say, bummer, let's move forward. You can have a great year and nobody's out jumping up and down for you. You just sort of say, great year. When you're a public company, it's all out there. And so when things are good, they get amplified. And when things are bad, they also get amplified. And so I sort of equate it to coming home every day and you look on Facebook and everybody's either got a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and you might have worn your best suit and your best tie and felt really good about how you performed that day, and there's this big thumbs down and you're sort of like, that doesn't make sense. I did a really good job today, but they're out there doing that, so your stock price is down and you're sort of like, that doesn't really work. And there's also times where you've done nothing to create value for your shareholders that day or that week, but the markets are up and you just get the benefit of being in the markets.
And you've been quite vocal in saying that while commercial banks and life insurance companies and others are eager to get in there now, you also say, where were they when times are tough? You believe in having some kind of a government entity or a government-backed lending program.
I do, very much so, Rebecca. I, in 2009, went up to the Hill and met with two staffs of prominent House Republicans. And the conversation was not whether Fannie and Freddie were going to go away, it was only a matter of when. And they basically said it's just when that last nail goes into their coffin. And I had charts with me, and they said as soon as we get the securitization markets back up, so the residential mortgage-backed security market and the commercial mortgage-backed security market back up and going, we can do it with Fannie and Freddie. And I pulled out a graph on both the residential side and the commercial side and showed them what happened to the securitization markets in 2009 and how in the commercial space they went from doing $230 billion of loans in 2008 to doing 2 in 2009. 230 to 2. It's a cliff. It goes straight down. And I said, how do you explain this and how do you make sure that this doesn't happen again? That won't happen again. I'm like, oh, really? You know that. You know how markets work.
You didn't know the voice of God lived on Capitol Hill?
You got it. And so I have to say that now that we're at a place in the debate where people realize that when markets dislocate, they dislocate completely. And that there is a role for the government to provide that backstop and step in. And as I have said multiple times, Fannie and Freddie did exactly what they were designed to do. Exactly what they were designed to do during the downturn. And as a result of that, I think that what they do, both on the single-family side as well as the multifamily side, should stay in place. Are there needed reforms? Clearly. Do I think that you really need a 440-page piece of new legislation to wipe them out and redo the system? I don't. I think that the regulator could make the needed changes on both the single-family side and on the multifamily side to allow the two enterprises to continue forward, doing exactly what they've done. But I know that there are plenty of political headwinds on that viewpoint.
Willy Walker, thanks so much for joining us on Washington Business Report. Walker & Dunlop has been voted by its employees one of the best places to work, according to Washington Business Journal. And next, we're going to hear from another company that also holds that distinction. When we return, our small business spotlight is on a company that keeps its clients coming back, but has its employees happy as well. How do they do it? The founders of the company fill us in when we come back.